The story begins quietly, with an emotional undercurrent that suggests something deeper is about to unfold. There's no dramatic entrance, no sudden sparks, just a missed assignment and a knock on a professor's office door. But from the very beginning, the tone is intimate, and the reader can sense that this moment, though small on the surface, will lead to something powerful. This opening works like a soft hook. It invites the audience to lean in. Pay attention not because something loud is happening, but because something real might. That emotional pull-of possibility. Of vulnerabilities, what gives this story its early gravity. Ethan Cole, a man who lives within. Line's Professor Ethan Cole is introduced as a structured, emotionally reserved man. He teaches literature at a small university in Vermont, and he has clear boundaries with his students. His world is one of routine, professionalism, and self-control. He is the kind of man who likely avoids emotional entanglements by staying within rules, his own and those set by the university. Ethan represents a very familiar type, intelligent, kind, but emotionally wounded. Later, we learn he's divorced. A detail that isn't lingered on, but it's important. It's been through heartbreak. It's cautious now. And when Rachel walks into his office, what she asks him to do isn't just give her an extension, it's to see her. And for the first time in a long while, he does. Rachel Monroe, more than just a student, Rachel Monroe is not your typical student. She's 21, thoughtful and sharp. But there's a quiet sadness in her, a heaviness that comes across in how she presents herself. Her denim jacket isn't just a clothing choice, symbolizes her comfort zone, her identity, and even the chaos in her life. Notice the coffee stain and mismatched buttons. Small, but human details that make her real. She approaches Ethan, not with excuses, but with honesty. Life got in the way, she says. That line carries weight. It's an emotional red flag that signals she's dealing with something deeper, maybe personal struggles, maybe pain. But she doesn't exploit it. She just asks for a second chance. And Ethan, who normally wouldn't bend rules, bends them for her. Why? Because somewhere, even if he won't admit it yet, he feels her. And something inside him, something emotional, not academic, responds. The assignment that wasn't just homework, Rachel's late submission, is no ordinary story. The title alone, The Ones Who Almost Fall in Love, sets the emotional tone. This is where the romantic layer begins to rise. As Ethan reads, he realizes this isn't fiction. It's a confession written in disguise. The story is about longing, unspoken connection, emotional boundaries, and perhaps about them. The professor in her story resembles him. It's too closely to ignore. And here's the emotional twist. He rereads it. It's twice. He doesn't mark it, grade it, or critique it immediately. Instead, he absorbs it. This moment is key because it shows that Ethan, whether consciously or not, is now involved. Not professionally, emotionally, spiritually. Personally, he replies to her. He doesn't have to, but he does. Can you meet? During office hours, I have notes. Good ones. This is not about grading anymore. This is about connection, coffee walks, and shared secrets. What begins as a discussion about writing slowly grows into something more intimate. Ethan and Rachel start talking beyond class about books, loneliness, the past. She shares that her mother is sick back in Buffalo. He tells her about his divorce. These aren't casual topics. These are confessions, quiet truths, vulnerabilities. This is where the emotional core deepens. It's not a forbidden romance driven by lust or rebellion. It's a relationship built on empathy. Ethan is a man who hasn't been emotionally seen in a long time. Rachel sees him. And she's a woman carrying pain that no one seems to ask about. Ethan asks, but they don't act on these feelings. There are no crossed physical lines. Only long glances, long talks, and moments that almost become something. More. And that's what makes it so romantic. The private story, the man who waited too long. Then Rachel brings him another story. Not for class, not for extra credit. But for him, this one is called The Man Who Waited Too Long. Now the message is unmistakable. This is a love letter in disguise. It's a narrative mirror, reflecting back their dynamic, their mistiming, and the emotional tension that has grown between them. She doesn't ask him to respond to it aloud. She just leaves it with him and walks away. Ethan reads it alone. Late at night, perhaps, with a glass of wine, perhaps with a heavy heart tanned when he finishes. He doesn't sleep right away. He doesn't know what to do, because now the unspoken has been spoken, even if only through fiction. The twist, her disappearance the next morning, she doesn't come to class. And by afternoon, she's withdrawn from the course completely. No goodbye. No explanation, just ... gone. Ethan is left staring at her withdrawal notice, stunned, confused, heartbroken in a way he can't even name. This is where the emotional and stormilate. Romantic tension peaks because everything they built, everything they could have been, is suddenly taken away. The story ends with a deep silence. And that silence leaves Ethan wondering, did she love him? Did he miss his chance? Was the story her goodbye or her invitation to say something? He'll never know, at least not yet. Themes and emotional depth. Let's break down the emotional and thematic layers that make Part 1 resonate deeply with a storytelling audience. 1. Longing and emotional intimacy. This story isn't about lust or sudden infatuation. It's about longing, that slow, aching pull towards someone you're not supposed to want. But can't help needing. Ethan and Rachel never touch romantically. Yet their emotional connection feels more intimate than most love scenes. They bond over shared loneliness, quiet heartbreaks, and the things they don't say out loud. This emotional intimacy is the soul of the story. 2. Age, power, and boundaries. There's a power dynamic here, professor and student, but the story handles it with maturity and sensitivity. There is no manipulation or imbalance. Both characters are adults navigating complex feelings. Rachel doesn't pursue him for advantage, and Ethan doesn't abuse his role. Instead, we're given to people in different stages of life, both wounded, in their own way, quietly orbiting one another in a world where the timing is never quite right. 3. Rules versus real life. Ethan is a man who follows the rules. Rachel's late assignment forces him to break one. That simple act becomes a metaphor for the entire story, because when it comes to matters of the heart, the rules often fall apart. Their journey challenges the idea of what's appropriate, what's ethical, and what's human. And while nothing physical happens, the emotional weight of their choices is very real. 4. Storytelling as a confessional. Tool. Rachel uses her writing to say what she can't say out loud. This adds a beautiful layer to the story that fiction becomes a way to tell the truth. Ethan understands this. That's why her stories matter to him. They're not just words. They're love letters hidden in plain sight. 5. Timing and regret. Final theme is perhaps the most universal. Timing. Everything about their relationship is rooted in what almost happened. He almost said something. She almost stayed. They almost fell in love. That aching almost is what gives the story its dramatic and romantic weight. And it's what leads perfectly into the cliffhanger ending. Cliffhanger? What now? The end of Part 1 leaves us with no closure, just unanswered questions and emotional residue. Did Ethan love her? Did Rachel leave to protect him or herself? Will they meet again? Or was this just one of those rare connections that come and go like a flash of lightning? The audience is left suspended in a feeling of heartbreak and hope, eager to know what comes next, but also aware that not all love stories get a tidy ending. That in itself is what makes the first part so human. Madeline Carter had never planned to move across the country. Not really. She wasn't one of those people who picked up and left because of a dream or a job or a bucket list. She moved because her heart had broken in such a quiet, persistent way that staying in Chicago just hurt too much. She was 34, independent, smart, capable, but emotionally. She was running on empty. Her long-term relationship had ended 6 months earlier, and the grief had come in waves. It wasn't just the breakup hit, was the years she had given, the versions of herself she had molded to make it work. She woke up one morning and realized that everything around her still looked like her old life, and none of it fit anymore. So she did something impulsive. She rented a little cottage on the Oregon coast. She gave herself permission to stop pretending she was okay. The Oregon coast was quieter than Chicago. More space, more ocean, fewer people who knew her story. Her days were filled with writing freelance articles, sipping tea, watching the waves crash against the cliffs, and letting herself be. Undone. 3 months into her self-imposed exile, something shifted. She was still healing, but she'd stopped crying every day. She could breathe again. Still, the tension sat in her body like a silent companion. Stiff shoulders, aching lower back, clenched jaw. One rainy Wednesday afternoon, she caught a reflection in the bathroom mirror and whispered, "You need to take care of yourself." So she did something simple, something small. She booked a massage. She found a place on her phone called Sage and Sea Spa. Small local spot with soft ocean colors on their website and words like healing, restorative, and calm in their service descriptions. It looked like the kind of place that would play ocean sounds and smell like lavender. That's all she wanted. 1 hour, a soft robe, quiet music, some peace. She booked the appointment online. A deep tissue session. No big deal. But when she arrived, damp from the drizzle and a little nervous about being touched after so long, something immediately felt off. The receptionist at the front desk was pleasant, but slightly flustered. She looked at her computer, blinked, tapped a few keys, and smiled too brightly. "Ah, you're the 3:30. We had a little mix-up with the schedule, but everything's fine," she said. Madeline nodded slowly, unsure of what that meant. But she didn't want to be difficult. Maybe the therapist was running late. Maybe someone had double booked. It happened. She followed the receptionist down a long hallway with soft lighting and the faint scent of eucalyptus. A gentle instrumental version of Norah Jones played in the background. Everything seemed normal. Until she opened the door. There, in the dim light of the massage room, stood 4 therapists. 4, not 1. 4. They all turned to look at her. There was a strange moment of stillness. Like none of them were sure what was happening next, and neither was she. Madeline froze in the doorway. I booked 1 massage." The 4 of them exchanged glances. Cal, the tall, tattooed one with messy dark hair and a devil-may-care energy, was the first to speak. "Yeah, about that." Cavery, the only woman in the group, stepped forward with calm, confident grace. She had rich brown curls tied back neatly and intelligent, knowing eyes. Her voice was warm, measured. "It's a small scheduling mistake. You weren't supposed to see all of us." Madeline opened her mouth to ask more. But Noah, clean-cut man with soft blue eyes and a steady, calming presence, smiled gently and said, "We thought maybe we'd let you choose." Then there was Eli. He hadn't said a word. He stood, a little off to the side, his hands in the pockets of his linen pants, his posture relaxed. He had tousled brown hair and a face that looked like it belonged in a quiet, novel, serious, thoughtful. His eyes met hers, and something passed between them. Familiarity, recognition, longing. She wanted to leave. She should have walked out, said it was too weird, too personal, too confusing. But something about the moment, the warmth of the room, the way they looked at her, not like a client, but like a person, made her stay. "I'm not really good at decisions," she admitted, almost laughing. "Not lately." Eli finally spoke. His voice was low and steady, a bit rough like gravel smoothed by time. "Then don't decide right away." They offered her something she'd never heard of before, a blended session. Each therapist would take a turn, working on a different area, bringing their own approach and energy. It sounded odd, but strangely comforting. Madeline nodded slowly. Okay, let's try it. What happened next wasn't just a massage. It was something else entirely. Cal went first. His style was bold and playful. He used strong hands, cracking jokes softly. As he worked, trying to draw a smile out of her. He was confident, flirtatious, but never pushy. She found herself relaxing more than she expected. Noah followed. He was the opposite, grounded, mindful. His touch was purposeful, but gentle. Like he was listening not just with his hands, but with his whole energy. He barely spoke, but when he did, his voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Then came Avery. She touched Madeline's back with something deeper than professionalism. It felt like understanding, compassion. She didn't ask questions. But somehow her hands knew where the pain lived. Not just the knots, but the memories beneath them. When Avery's hands moved across Madeline's shoulders, a lump rose in. Her throat dot, and finally, Eli dot, he was the last. And the quietest. His hands moved with slow, intuitive grace, like he was painting something invisible on her skin. He didn't say a word. But with every motion, she felt more whole, more seen, as if he could feel the grief she hadn't spoken aloud, as if he carried some of his own. By the end of the hour, she was no longer sure what she had just experienced. Her body felt lighter, her chest looser, her breath deeper. She sat up slowly, her robe pulled tight around her. I think I needed more than just a massage, she said, her voice trembling with honesty. There was no laughter in the room, no awkwardness, only quiet understanding. Avery stepped forward. You're not the only one who came here trying to heal. The words hit like an anchor, soft, but grounding. Madeline looked at each of them, for strangers, for stories, for ways of being held, and something inside her whispered. This was never just about the massage. Closing of Part 1 cliffhanger that night. Madeline walked home beneath a silver sky, the ocean wind brushing against her skin. She didn't know what any of it meant. She didn't know why her heart was racing or why she couldn't stop thinking about their faces, their voices, their hands. All she knew was that something had started, and she wasn't sure where it would lead. But for the first time in months, she wasn't afraid to find out. For therapists, one heart. The healing continues. After that unexpected hour at Sage and Sea Spa, Madeline Carter's life began to shift in ways she hadn't anticipated. She thought booking a massage was simply a moment of self-care. Instead, it became a doorway to something far more complex and deeply human. The ripple effect of 4 touches in the days following the blended massage session. Madeline tried to convince herself it was just the release of physical tension. It was nothing more than professional hands easing out knots she had carried for too long. But that's never how healing works. Is it? No matter how much she focused on her work, or walked by the ocean, or sat alone with her journal, the memory of those 4 therapists lingered like a soft echo. Eli's quiet, almost hesitant energy, Noah's grounded kindness, Cal's playful teasing, Avery's profound understanding. They weren't just names or faces anymore. They were feelings, memories that teased her heart. The note, an invitation, no pressure one evening, a simple, handwritten note slipped under her door, startled her. It wasn't signed with just one name, but all 4. You don't owe us anything, but if you'd like to talk or not talk, we'll be at Driftwood Cafe at Sea. No pressure. Avery and the guys to her heart skipped. Why did she want to go so badly? Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the longing for connection after months of loneliness. She debated, ignoring it, but something inside her, a small flicker of hope, urged her to try. First meeting at Driftwood Cafe that night. Madeline walked into Driftwood Cafe, a cozy little spot with warm lighting, the smell of fresh coffee, and soft indie music humming in the background. They were all there. Noah rose to pull out a chair for her. Avery gave her a warm smile that reached her eyes. Cal offered a cheeky grin and a nod. Eli looked a little nervous but welcoming. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a setup. It was something new, something undefined. They talked to Zelie about small-town life, the best hiking trails, their favorite books, and the little quirks of moving to the coast. Who are they really? Madeline learned their stories piece by piece and felt a deep connection to each. Noah was a former paramedic who left his hectic, sometimes traumatic city life to find calm and purpose. His calm demeanor hid the weight of what he'd seen, and his gentle care extended beyond his work to how he treated Madeline. Avery, originally from Toronto, had abandoned a high-powered corporate law career to pursue massage therapy and healing. She knew what it was like to escape a life that wasn't true to oneself. Kel was an artist at heart, covered in tattoos and a little wild at times. He'd backpacked across Europe with nothing but a sketchbook and a camera, always chasing inspiration. He was playful, but had a soft spot Madeline glimpsed when he thought no one was looking. Eli was the quiet soul, a painter who saw the world in brushstrokes and colors. His silence was comforting. It was as if he spoke through his presence,